Thank you. Heather Tiernan, Community Warning Systems Manager. I've permitted you. Let me know if you're able to speak.
Great. Welcome, Heather.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Welcome, and thanks you for joining us tonight to give us a good presentation.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I have a short PowerPoint with some boring stuff and then some good data. So can I share my screen?
Yes, let me stop my share. And let me know if you have the ability to share right now.
Yeah, it looks like it's working.
Great.
Can you all see that?
You guys are all wizards. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
We do a lot of this type of stuff. Okay, so I manage the community warning system. This system is the official emergency alert and warning system for the county. It's housed at the sheriff's office, but it's available to all jurisdictions within the county. And I'm gonna just talk a little bit today, quick overview, kind of getting a little bit more specific to obviously Moraga-Orinda and some of our public safety power shutoff response and planning initiatives. So first, I just wanted to review the activation request process for the system. So as you can see, there's a fire, for example, or any other type of emergency, but there's an emergency that happens, and then the incident commander, whether it be law or fire or health or whoever is an actual incident commander out in the field, will request a CWS activation via their agency dispatch. Their dispatch center relays that request to the sheriff's office dispatch, who then calls our on-call duty officer, which is usually myself or other CWS staff. And then that duty officer who's on call contacts the incident commander directly. Now, we are sticklers to the law out there in Moraga and Orinda. So we have a little bit of another step of making sure that that formal request comes from law instead of fire. But usually those entities are already, by the time we need to make that request, those entities are already working together. So I don't think that that really adds any time or any real meat to this request process.
Why does it, I'm sorry, why does it have to come through?
Technically in California, well, specifically for evacuations, law manages evacuations. So fire is there and they make the recommendation for where and when and all of that for evacuations. But since law is responsible for actually getting the people out of their houses and managing traffic and security and all of that, technically law manages evacuations.
By state law, sir, law has the authority to order an evacuation and or close a public street. Fire does not. It also reduces the potential for confusion that by having the request for evacuations flow through law, we avoid the potential where the dispatch center or CWS will be getting conflicting evacuation requests from fire and law in an uncoordinated manner.
Yeah.
What if it's a refinery release and you don't want people to evacuate? You want to stay in their houses?
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then technically health has the authority to issue those requests. But again, so, I mean, we can talk about all the different types of emergencies and kind of gearing this towards the public safety power shutoffs and the threats of fires that we usually have with those. Yeah, I mean, the processes for refinery activations and releases it's a little different. But again, it typically doesn't affect this area.
I don't think we have any of those here.
Nope, not there. In Contra Costa County, but not where you guys are. So anyway, so the duty officer contacts the IC directly. It's important to keep that in mind. We need to talk to somebody on the scene. We don't just work through dispatch if at all avoidable. A lot of times when we get notified, these incidents are changing rapidly and we have some unique questions and information that we need to get to make sure that we can send an effective public messages like routes that are available or, you know, roads that are closed, ways that we want people to go, that we don't want people to go, if we even know that yet. Just a lot of some little details that we can get quickly, but it's a lot faster if we can deal with someone who's actually on the scene. It doesn't technically have to be the incident commander as long as they designate someone who knows what's going on and is authorized to sort of make those decisions and those calls. So we work with the incident commander to not only come up with the messaging and the explanation of what's going on, what we want people to do, where we want them to go, how we want them to go there, all of that. We also talk about the affected area, and I'll talk about that a little more in a couple minutes. So we talk through all of those things. We've got templates in our system that we use. So this usually goes pretty quickly. We just clarify a few facts and send those messages out. And so after that, we'll send out an emergency notification. So that's sort of our process. If there's any subsequent messages that need to go out, we tell the incident commanders, don't go through this whole process again. Once you've gotten to us, let's just talk back and forth. Just call me back. If something else happens with this fire, or if it keeps going or something like that, don't make your requests all the way through this process. Save time, just call me directly. So that's the process that we use for activating our system. How does it work when a message goes out, or if a message will go out? We have a couple things. So first, when we will and won't use our system. We only use our system if there's an imminent threat to human life and health, and there's a protective action for the general community to take. So we don't use our system for FYIs. I know your neighbors in Alameda County often do use their alert and warning systems just for FYIs. I know red flag warning and PSPS notifications are big in some places, but we believe that there are a lot of other ways to get that type of information. So like active threats to human life is sort of our criteria for when we'll use our system. What information is included? I kind of talked about this just on the last slide. We want to talk about what is the emergency? What did the people need to do? Where is the emergency? If we can give them more information about where it's coming from, which way it's going, like specifically for a fire, that's helpful. We want to talk about why the action is necessary. If it's, I mean, a fire is pretty obvious, but sometimes, you know, we will give a little bit more information. If we're going to do, for example, an evacuation warning instead of an order, we'll talk about what they need to do for that and what we're going to do if they need to take further actions. And then when the action is necessary and when it will be done. Usually we say it's immediately, and then we say it will be done when we call you back and tell you that it's done. But it still is something that we put in that message to make sure people understand. And then finally, how are we targeting the areas that need to be notified of emergencies? We have a couple of different things in our system, and it really allows us to have a lot of flexibility in how we can reach people. So we can geo-target down to a granular level. I can just say, oh, you just want this street from that street to that street and just the residents on that street. I mean, I can get that granular. I can just get like a couple houses if you really want me to. It's probably not the best idea. You probably just have people knock on those doors, but I can. So we have like a lot of flexibility. I can do a radius. I can just draw a picture with as many points as I want, and I can you know, make any shape that's relevant to the people affected in the emergency. We also partner with Zone Haven, and we have all of the zones that they've created, all the different fire zones. We have those in our system, and we can just pull up Moraga or pull up Orinda and click, oh, we're having an emergency in zone 14. Okay, click on zone 14 and it will draw its own picture around that for us. So it just saves us a little time, especially in these areas where streets are squiggly and it's hard to find cross streets sometimes. And then finally, just another note is that we do, since we activate the system for the entire county, we have the ability to do cross-jurisdictional activations without any problems. If a fire is starting in Moraga and going towards Orinda or Lafayette, or if anything is going any direction, if both areas are affected right now, I can send an alert that's consistent to both of those jurisdictions right now. Again, we've done a lot of work out in the La Orinda area, so there's a lot of coordination between the different law agencies and fire agencies that are out there. And so, you know, we are pretty confident that we'll get the right message out and we can get it to everyone affected right away. Okay, so this is a lot on this page. So a little snapshot of the tools that we have available. We have a lot of tools that we can use to send messages to members of the community. First of all, we can send phone calls. They're great. I mean, a lot of people are just used to that and they really want that. They want to hear someone talking to them. We can use the existing AT&T 911 database. We have access to that from AT&T since we're an emergency notification program. And then we can also send phone calls to other registered phone numbers. So if you have a VoIP line that's basically an internet line, it's not a traditional AT&T line, so that needs to be registered. Or if you have a cell phone, you can register that device there. I will note that phone calls are our slowest notification method, just because it takes time for those phone calls to get through the system and to have enough space. If we're calling 10,000 people at once, it takes a while for there to be enough space in the phone lines for, you know, it'll read the message to this batch and then the next batch and then the next batch. It's a good tool, people like it, but it is our slowest. We can also send text messages and emails to registered devices. Those are great because they're very fast. I know emails don't wake you up in the night, but when you get woken up by the phone call and it's the robot voice and you're freaking out and you don't remember what they say, you can just check your email and it's already there. So that's a really nice thing to have. We also have a public website that's dedicated to the community warning system. The front page is usually relatively blank, except for some registration buttons on the side. And if we have an activation, it takes over the front screen or the front page of our website. So it's really easy to see if there's an emergency, it's got the message and it has a map of the affected area. So if you think something's going on, it's a really good place to check because you can see, oh, maybe there is, but I'm not in that area. It's a really useful tool. And then we also utilize social media. We have Facebook and Twitter accounts. Those are, again, not going to wake you up in the night, but they're really good for sharing information with the media and just sort of getting that information out there and just, you know, leveraging other people who see it, who can call someone and make sure they're okay. And then finally, we have the ability to activate FEMA level tools. So the iPause system, they manage the wireless emergency alerts. So that's the text-like message that makes a really loud sound on your phone. And then it's just a short message. We can activate that system. It's managed at the federal level, but we have authorization to activate it. We can activate the emergency alert system. We all know what that is on the TV and radio. And we can also activate National Weather Service weather radios. So we partner with them to activate weather radios if the emergency requires it. So we generally only use the emergency alert system and National Weather Service radios if the emergency is pretty large scale, or if there's other exigent things going on with that emergency. So for the emergency alert system, that goes out to the whole region. So if I activate that system for an emergency in Contra Costa County, the entire Bay Area will get that alert. Sort of similar with weather radios. They're supposed to be targeted to the county level, but it does bleed over quite a bit. And so if I activate something for a small area in Contra Costa County, it's going to go to the whole county, everyone who has weather radios and beyond, probably pretty significantly beyond. But if we need to use it, we need to use it. But that's why we just don't use it for like all of our alerts. It's just because it's a lot and we don't want people to get alert fatigue. And then another thing to note is that this is just one piece of our emergency response. And especially for evacuations, we do still rely on, you know, first responders out there doing door knocks, neighbors helping neighbors, and news reports. When someone says, oh, I heard about the evacuation from the news got it from us. So it still is, you know, one of our sort of extended tools that we use to help make sure that everyone who needs to know about an emergency knows about it. Okay, and then just since we talked about the tools that we do use, let's talk a little bit about the difference between some of these tools. Nixle is a tool that is really great, especially in our county for a lot of the nice to know situations. You can register for like a broad area to get text messages and emails, but it's really hard to separate when you use that for how you use that for some of these nice to know things, right? Like the road's closed, you can't go out this way, you have to go out this other way, or else you're going to be stuck in a gigantic traffic jam that you really want to know, but you're not going to die if you don't know it. So it's in this county, that's sort of how different local jurisdictions use Nixle. We don't use Nixle. We're only at the community warning system doing life safety emergency alerts. Again, our neighbors in Alameda, they use Nixle as their emergency alerting system. So there's a lot of alerts that come through on that. And then there's Nextdoor. We use Nextdoor at the community warning system for mostly for outreach and education. And then, but it's not, we don't consider that an emergency alerting tool because it's just an email. And again, we use that primarily for outreach and education. And then Facebook and Twitter, you know, there's a lot of people who get a lot of information on Facebook and Twitter, and we just want to remind people that you need to check some of these more official channels. Our stuff is on Facebook and Twitter, but if you see conflicting things on Facebook and Twitter, like if you see a post from us and then you see a post from people that you know or things like that, it's always best to go check those more official channels like the website or things like that. So we just like to give that little disclaimer because we know, again, since the Santa Rosa fires, there's been a lot more public notification systems pop up and be used for a lot of different things, but that's not necessarily what we use in this county. All right, so now we're talking a little bit more specifically about if we're in a public safety power shutoff or just kind of in general, but a lot of this is really geared towards that. So how will you wake me up in the night? This goes for both if there's a power outage and for everyone who says, well, I turn my phone off at night. So I say, if you turn your phone off at night and you have a family emergency, how are you going to find out about that family emergency? Are you just going to wait till the morning? Is that okay with you? Or are you going to, you know, hope that there's some other way that you can get that alert? So we really like to tell people, think about that. Sometimes you need to have your phone on at night, even if it's annoying. I say people should just get better friends if their friends are calling them all night long. So we have a couple solutions. First, just leave your phone on and really work with people to say like, hey, leave me alone. I'm done at night. You can also save our contact information in your phone and save it as an emergency bypass. So even if you put your phone on do not disturb, that phone number, it'll recognize that contact as one that's allowed to come through in the night. So your friends can't bother you, but we can get in and bother you. So you can save that phone number. And that's one way, but it still requires that your phone is on. It still requires that your phone isn't on silent. So that's just one thing that we try to really get through to people is that, I mean, especially during red flag warnings or if there's a public safety power shut off, just don't turn your phone off. Just risk too many notifications in the night. And then, so what if the cell signals go down? So we have a few things for that. So this year during our public safety power shutoffs, well, not this year, in 2020, we saw that most of the communication worked pretty well. We didn't get a lot of information about communication challenges during this more recent public safety power shutoff season. But we did during 2019, especially in the Lafayette area, there were some cell phone towers that went down and it did cause some communication issues. So if that is the case, we saw a couple things. First, when we did evacuation messages, our WIA messages, the wireless emergency alert, the annoying text message alerts, a lot of those still got out to people's phones who didn't have a signal. What we think happened there, since again, we're not in charge of that system, we just use it. What we think happened is that their phone had enough signal from a farther away tower, right? Theirs was down, but it had just enough signal from a farther away tower to get that piece of data. They're not going to have enough of a signal to like make a phone call, but just for this tower to push that piece of data at them, it was enough. So that's good to know, but not necessarily a complete alerting plan. So the other thing that we have is that we have, like I mentioned, the ability to activate National Weather Service radios. So like I said, we usually only do that if it's a large scale emergency because of the, you know, implications and the reach of that tool. However, if we know that we're having like pretty significant communication challenges, it's something that we can use to sort of fight that. So we've encouraged people throughout the area to get weather radios. It's great because you can just have them on like an emergency setting. So they're off, basically off most of the time. You're not hearing anything and they just turn on when there's an emergency alert. So that's great. So those are some of the ways that we can communicate if the cell signals go down. But again, we're seeing some decrease in that, at least during public safety power shutoffs. It's something that if there is an active fire that's starting to affect cell phone towers, that's something that we'll have to just work with fire personnel and law personnel to see if we need to do like pre-evacuations, because we're not going to be able to communicate with them for longer. So should we just tell them now? So it's something that we, you know, that type of stuff we work, again, we work very closely with Orinda PD, Moraga PD, and MOFD. So those types of conversations are things that we can be ready for if an emergency is happening. What if the power is out? A lot of times if the power is out, your cell phone will still work as long as those towers are still up, and we're seeing that those towers are getting, the cell towers are getting hardened, and so that they have got some backup generators and powers. Your TV and cable might not work, your internet might not work, so your internet phone, your cable, your Comcast phone, right, that you got from your triple bundle, that might not work, and that's why we always tell people you need to register to receive emergency alerts. So register those cell phones because those can still work. And just make sure that you also have a backup power source. We've been recommending this throughout the area for a while, like a uninterrupted power source. Basically, it's like a big battery and you can plug a couple things into it, right? It's not gonna power your house, it's not a generator, but you can either plug your modem into it so that that still has power, or you can plug like a charger into it so that you can plug your phone into it so that you can charge your phone. So there's ways that we can still reach you if the power's out. You just need to make sure that we're prepared and ready for that. And then finally, just because of some of the crazy fires we've been having throughout the state lately, we just want to make sure that we let people know that if you ever see fire or smoke, or you think that there's some sort of a problem coming, but you haven't gotten your emergency alert yet, but your spidey senses are telling you that it's time to go, then it's okay if you go. You know, we've seen, again, in some of these either fast moving fires or fires where there were just new fires starting all over the place so quickly that, you know, we heard people on the phone with dispatch that say, I live on A street and I smell smoke, and they say we don't have any report of a fire there. And then 2 minutes later, the deputy comes in and he said, I'm on A street and there's a big fire, it's taking over everything. So we just want to make sure, I mean, there's no way to stay on top of something like that where the fires are starting that quickly if it's really that bad. So we just want to make sure that this system is here, it's reliable, we use it a lot, but make sure that you're using your own judgment as well and not just solely relying on something like this. If you see something and you think something is wrong and you need to do something, by all means, take that protective action. Okay, now into the nitty gritty. So we've been sharing our registration data with the cities for quite a while, but just a quick review. So you can see for both Moraga and Orinda, we have the population. This is just from this, like a census quick fact, so sorry if it's not exactly right. The population and the households for both. We usually count one of our registration accounts in our system as a household, because you can register like 3 phone numbers, 3 text messages, 3 emails, 3 addresses. So usually what we see is that most accounts have a couple phone numbers in them because, you know, I registered, right? Like I registered myself and my husband, I'm in charge, right? So like, it's just one account, but it covers 2 people. So usually that's what we do. However, in Moraga and Orinda, you have so many registration accounts that you have surpassed the number of households. So while it would be cool to say that we're at 125% of the people registered, I don't know if that's necessarily correct. So now we're starting to look at the population and the households. So there definitely still are some people where the household is you know, covered by one account, but maybe there are households where each person in the house has an account. So we kind of broke it down a little bit more, and you can see that while for example, in Moraga, we have almost 7,300 accounts, fewer households than that, but the population is quite a bit more. The total number of phone numbers associated with those 7,300 accounts is almost 13,000 accounts. So you can see everyone, or most of the accounts have 1.5, right? So every other one has a second phone number. In those 7,300 accounts, we have over 9,000 text messages and emails. So we do have a pretty big reach. This is just like an overview for you all to see. This area is one of our highest registration numbers, and we continue to get, you know, a lot of community interest, and we have like requests for our brochures and requests for information and presentations and stuff. So while we're already up there pretty high, you know, we're not going to be like jumping 1,000 anymore because we're already so high. We still are getting a lot of interest and engagement. So that is just a quick review of the numbers. I think that's all I have. So does anyone have a question?
Heather, this is Director Donner. I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
When you get an order from the field, from the incident command, and you have a
You kind of cut out.
People.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit.
Phone all go out simultaneously.
Sorry, you went out, you cut out. Oh, you're asking if our alert goes out all at once to 10,000 people?
No. If you're going to evacuate a neighborhood, does the text message and the email and the phone all go out simultaneously?
Yes, we send it all at once. The text and the email will go out within 1 or 2 minutes. The phone calls take longer. So they all start at the same time. The phone calls won't be done for, if it's a neighborhood, the phone calls will be done maybe within 5 or 10 minutes. But yes, they all go out at the same time. Yeah.
And then my other question, if you have an old school AT&T landline, that is still good when power is down. Is that correct?
Yes, it should be. Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure that's still accurate information.
Yes, as far as we know.
Okay. Thank you. Great presentation. And where are we into as with our numbers? Where are we in relation to other cities and towns in Contra Costa County with our numbers? It seems like we're pretty good.
By far the best. Lafayette's in there, right? Because it's like a, it's a whole group. But by far the best. The next closest is Kensington and El Cerrito, because we've done similar outreach and engagement programs with them as we've done with the La Orinda agencies. But yeah, by far the best.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have any other questions, board members? I have some. So I just have a couple quick ones. So does your database, can you just sort it by unique addresses so you'll know how many actual households have it?
All of our data is very complicated. So some of our data is stored in our system as it got transitioned to lat longs, and it's hard to switch it back because it's just easier for the mapping. So no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we probably could, but it would probably take our whole lives.
So when you send out text messages and whatever, so if I send a text message myself, I know whether it got delivered or not. Do you have something that lets you know which of these things actually made it to the other end?
Sure, we do have reporting, and it's pretty good. So for emails, it says it either sent it or that the email was bad, right? So like, instead of putting the @ sign, you accidentally just did the 2, right? So it'll be like, oh, that email was bad, I didn't send it. Everything else for emails, it just sent. Whether your email rejected it or put it in spam or anything like that, we can't track that. For text messages, it's sort of similar. It's either usually like sent or rejected or bad phone number, right? Or blocked. Sometimes people block us. For phone calls, we have a lot more data, and but yes, we can tell. Phone calls there's a lot, right? So, and we also for phone calls have a retry mechanism. We don't really need that for text and email. So for phone calls, we have a retry mechanism. It usually will retry after between 5 and 10 minutes for any failed attempt. And so we put a bunch of things that aren't necessarily the system's fault into a fail. For example, if the phone line is busy, we say that's a fail, right? Try again, see if they're off the phone. But that's not the system's fault if it doesn't ever get through, if you're on the phone, right? So there's a lot of things. So we do have a retry mechanism. We do have the ability to see sort of the success of our phone calls and stuff. Yeah.
And then I know it's not your job, but I wondered if you have any input to the, the Verizons and T-Mobiles of the world to say, hey, we know that you don't have battery backups on these places because the phone calls, when we're a day into the power shutoff, the text messages to all these people aren't going through. And do you help lobby to tell them they need to get more battery backups, or do you have a way to figure out which cell towers aren't working well or any of that?
Yeah, so we do, again, like I don't have the direct power over that, but there's been legislation in the past couple years that's gone through to, you know, hardening critical infrastructures like cell phone towers and things like that. And emergency managers and other first responders do have input into that legislation and get to make their voices heard about how important that is. And it just, you know, strengthens that argument. So there has been some legislation there. And then the other question was if we are able to, like, let me tell you, during the public safety power shutoffs a couple years ago, we got from Verizon, oh no, you're not going to have any outages. But then the Board of Supervisors got a list of towers that were going to go down. So we've had some, again, at least we have good communication with them. So that has been an issue in the past. This year, we didn't see any towers that I know of go down. And there has been some more encouragement and I think legislation in the pipeline for better communication with the locals by some of these big agencies. So I think it's kind of I think they're starting to harden it, so they're not going to need to do that communication as much, but they also are doing a little bit better communicate. It's getting better.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, that's been very, very helpful. I guess now we need to go on to, is there any more comment from the board? Questions? So now we go on to public comment about this agenda item 9.1. I think we had one that we knew about.
We do have one. I also received one written public comment that I would like to go ahead and read into record, and then we can go to our hands raised.
Great.
So the written public comment was sent in by Cheryl Koo. She is a resident of Contra Costa County, Moraga. Please address how and when we as a community will be made aware of the following. When will we as a community know what is going to be done about being able to receive an appropriate timely response on our cell phones by CWS for impending preparation to evacuate, warning to evacuate during a PSPS event, high fire, red flag, high wind warning? How and what can be done to make sure all zones and areas have the capability to have messages received via cell phones? In the meantime, should residents invest in radio devices? While the CWS Overview Committee is working on this, can our community and the MOFD have the usage of a high-low signal on their police and fire patrol cars to help let the public know that they may need to evacuate due to a fire? We are going to be dealing with the fire season getting longer, happening earlier due to continued drought and global warming patterns in California. In the meantime, we need a reliable system for evacuation warnings for the upcoming year. During the last PSPS red flag high wind warning shutoff, power lines were de-energized, and so were cable lines for internet access. Many in the La Orinda community, Orinda and Moraga, were not able to receive text notifications, updates, call out, or receive phone calls. I have heard that during the high wind and lightning event that triggered the Santa Cruz CZ complex fire, many residents there also did not receive CWS alerts to prepare to evacuate and or to evacuate the area due to the power being shut off. I appreciate knowing that there is a community warning system overview committee now established to work on this matter for our community in California.
All right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then go ahead.
We have the one hand raised, right?
Yes. I am unmuting Bernie Riff.
Hi. I am also concerned about how CWS is able to perform during a public safety power shutdown. It would be helpful to understand whether they have some sort of power backup for their own system to ensure that even during a PSPS, they are able to send out a signal. And also, I'm wondering what information the speaker can provide with respect to the legislation that has been passed. What are the requirements for the cell phone providers at this point to have emergency backup or generators for their cell towers, and also for the internet service providers? Is there any legislation that requires that they provide service during power shutdowns? Thank you.
So Heather, do you?
Sure.
I'm not going to force you to answer those questions, but if you'd like to.
There are some that I have easy answers for, and some I don't necessarily have all the details for. Okay, so I'll start sort of at the beginning. I think one was getting notified about impending public safety power shutoffs. So again, like I mentioned, we don't send emergency alerts for warnings that something could happen that could trigger an emergency. So I understand that that's not maybe necessarily the most popular decision right now in Contra Costa County about sending alerts that public safety power shutoffs are coming, but PG&E has been working really hard to get people to register and send notifications directly to those who are affected. If I just send an alert out, there tends to be bleed over. There's all sorts of other stuff that goes on while they can contact direct customers that they provide service for and say your power is going off. So we always encourage people to make sure that they've registered there. Once everyone is registered, we're hearing that there's lots of communication that goes through both phone calls and emails. As far as notification about red flag and high red flag warning days and high wind warning days, you know, that information is very publicized in our area on the news media. And then we just, on our website, we have links to the National Weather Service and the red flag warning pages to see what areas are in a red flag warning, if you're in a red flag warning. So we provide some ways for people to check that information, but we don't push that information out to the community. It's just sort of right now some of the policies and uses of our system. And then there was a question about making sure that cell phones can get alerts during public safety power shutoffs or just anytime the power's out, right? So I haven't heard from community members about in the 2020 PSPSs of having communication systems down. So I can see if I can find a little bit more information about that. We did hear that during some of the 2019 power shutoffs. Those were just much more widespread. And obviously we had a lot of fires during those. But we have had some successful activations where the power had been off and that we did send alerts to the community. There was I think it's the Merrill neighborhood, I think that's the name of that neighborhood, that in 2019 during a public safety power shutoff in the middle of the night, we sent an alert to that neighborhood and everyone who was registered was getting those alerts. And so I think, you know, there's a difference between the power being off and the communication channels being down. If the power is off and communication channels still work, obviously if the internet's not working, that takes a piece of it away. But if the cell phones are working and you can get your cell phone on, you know, like a cellular thing and still access some of the internet capabilities, then hopefully that is going to still allow us to get those emergency alerts out. As far as radios, we have been recommending, especially for people in very high fire risk areas, to get weather radios to receive those notifications in the event that communication channels do go down, because we have radio repeaters all over the place, and we know that radio is a pretty reliable form of communication. It's just very widespread for this tool. So hopefully the cell phones will work as long as if the power is out, let's make sure we separate those two things, the power being out and communication channels being down. Yes, get a weather radio in addition to all the other stuff. And then I can't really answer about the patrol cars, but I do know that lots of times they get on their radio. They don't necessarily, I think in this area, have a special siren, but they get on their loudspeaker and yell out for people to get out and do a lot. I mean, they do door knocks, they do drive, they do all of that. And then, no, that didn't include Bernard's questions. What else did Bernard have? I can't remember. Was there, what other things am I missing from that? Oh, specifics on the legislation. I don't have that off the top of my head. And I know that there is specific stuff for legislation for cell service providers. I don't know, and I don't have all the details for that, but there's a lot of hardening, and it's not necessarily for, this is just some paraphrasing, it's not necessarily for every single tower, but it's so that they can maintain coverage. So you might not have good signal, but you'll have some signal. Does that make sense, right? So like if this one, but these two can cover it if it goes, something like that. And then as far as other utilities like cable and internet, I don't know. I don't think that they were included in that, but I don't have that information right now.
Okay, any other public input? Okay, so I'll close the public comment. Thank you so much, Heather, for spending your Wednesday evening with us. It was very informative, and we very much appreciate it. And it looks, you've done a great job, but it looks like the people, it's that last mile I think everybody is asking all the questions about. It's not your system per se, it's how to actually make sure it gets from when you send it out actually gets to somebody. That's the tough part that we all are trying to work on.
Yep.
So Bernie Riff has re-raised his hand. We also have another hand raised.
Okay.
Bernie Riff, you are unmuted. You can.
Oh, okay. The part of my question that wasn't answered is CWS itself. Can CWS send out messages end to end? Does it have backup power to do all that, to access its database and its software and send out these different alerts during a power outage?
Yeah, the system, all of our software is web-based. So anywhere we go, as long as we have power and a signal. So luckily, none of us live in some of the common areas that have these PSPSs, but if someone was on call and they lived in that area and they didn't have power, we give the on-call to someone else. All we need, yeah. So it's a completely web-based program. There's no hard wiring or anything like that. We just go somewhere else that does have power.
So web-based, so if the power goes out, well, if the internet goes out, even if the sheriff can know about it, but they can't tell anybody if the internet's down. Like
all of the internet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it went down in LA during the earthquake that happened in 1980, whatever.
Yeah.
It all went down.
So, I mean, a lot of that stuff has come a long way, and we just aren't seeing that as much anymore. We have some priority things for communication access, but we haven't seen just overall all of the internet going down. So that's not something, I mean, that's not a risk. We don't have our own backup internet system.
Well, no, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, if the whole entire internet in all of the Bay Area goes down, yeah, it's probably going to be a problem.
I think the only thing I would say is that we know that Comcast, for example, we had the power went out in my neighborhood 2 days ago in the morning. Took Comcast 5 extra hours after PG&E turned the power back on to get their system back up.
Sure. So we just, and again, that's just something where if I don't have internet at my house, I mean, we have hotspots on our phones where we have a signal, but we don't necessarily have our internet. We have multiple internet capabilities at the EOC, so we could just go into work. So, I mean, there's a lot of sort of workarounds for that at this point.
Great. And then you said somebody else had their hand up, Marcia?
Yes, yes. So I am unmuting Jacob Irola.
Jacob?
Accidental.
We can hear you now.
Accidental.
Oh, he raised his hand accidentally.
Okay.
So we do not have any more hands raised. We have not received any written public comment.
Great. So I'll close the public comment period, and thank you very much, Heather, again for all your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
So now we go on to, there's nothing for the board to deliberate in this. So it was information only.
Correct.
So now we go on to the regular agenda, item 9.2, adopting resolution 21.02, which is for improving the investment policy for district funds.
President Jorgens and members of the board, the district's investment policy requires annual review by the board. The policy has been reviewed by staff. No changes are recommended. Staff recommends the board adopt resolution 21-02, approving an investment policy for district funds.
Okay, do we have any, says that next I'm going to do the public comment on that. So is there any public comment?
We do not have any hands raised, and we have not received any written public comment.
Okay, I'm going to close the public comment period then. Do we have any board discussion on the topic? Okay, do I hear a motion then to approve the investment policy?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 21-02, resolution of the board of directors regarding approving an investment policy for district funds.
Second the motion.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Director Bates?
Aye.
Director Danziger?
Aye.
Director Donner?
Aye.
Director Jex?
Aye.
President Jorgens?
Aye. Okay, the motion is passes. So now we go to public comment on that same item.
We did not have public comment on that item. So now we're on to item 9.3.
9.3, yes. Oops, I'm sorry, I was behind a page. So it's actually on an, oh, the local agency. And isn't that what we just did?
That the other one was for an investment policy.
That's what this says. 9.3. So we're on a 9.4. No?
It's for a 9.3. That's for.
Oh, the investment money is for local agency investment fund. Okay, sorry.
Yes, good. Yes. All right. Good evening, directors. Due to new board officers, it is necessary to update the officers authorized to deposit or withdraw monies with the local agency investment fund. The recommended resolution reflects the new board president and the new board treasurer. Staff recommends the board adopt resolution 21-03, authorizing investment of monies in local agency investment fund.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this item 9.3?
We do not have any hands raised, and we have not received any written public comment.
Okay, then I'll close the public comment on item 9.3. Do we have any board discussion? Do we hear a motion to approve item 9.3?
Move we approve resolution number 2103.
I'll second.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Bates?
Aye.
Director Danziger?
Aye.
Director Donner?
Aye.
Director Jex?
Aye.
President Jorgens?
Aye. So we've adopted resolution 2103 authorizing the investment of monies in local agency investment funds. Okay, regular agenda item 9.4, authorizing the acceptance of the Urban Area Security Initiative grant to develop a comprehensive evacuation support system and authorize capital projects, fund revenue and expenditure budget adjustment increases in the amount of $300,000.
Good evening, directors, and I believe relevant to the discussion from CWS. This item, the district's been awarded a grant as a subrecipient of the Urban Area Security Initiative, UASI, to Contra Costa County in the amount of $300,000. The purpose of the grant is to contract the development of comprehensive evacuation support system consistent of fire modeling, evacuation polygons, and evacuation decision support tool. The project must be completed by terms of the grant by December 31st, 2021. Accepting the grant fund will require a modification to the budget. Capital Projects Fund budget adjustment is necessary to increase federal grant revenue to increase equipment expenditures in the amount of $300,000. For background, as Heather referenced, the Moraga-Orinda area is significantly ahead on both CWS signups and associated with that awareness of the need for evacuation preparedness and an underlying substrate of evacuation polygons or zones, which are critical to the rapid subdivision of a community in order to execute a prioritized and time-phased evacuation system. That's largely due to the ongoing multi-year and continuing efforts of our emergency preparedness manager, Dennis Rain, and our Moraga-Orinda CERT community, which have worked tirelessly on this issue. That in recognition of the best practices and the progress that we have made in the Moraga-Orinda area, in this endeavor, other surrounding counties, specifically Alameda County and San Mateo County, recently adopted and rolled out a similar system. In San Mateo County, it's been used on several real-world fires to include the SCU complex last summer. And 2 nights ago, in Santa Cruz County, they used that same system for the evacuations in Aptos on Monday during the wind event. From 2 small fires that threatened homes there. So the grant is to expand that system on a countywide basis. That is beneficial because, as Heather referenced, a fire at a scale that is large enough to cause evacuations is very likely to cross political boundaries. And as a fire either starts in our jurisdiction and moves into a neighboring jurisdiction, or in the opposite direction, coming into our area, if evacuation plans and the underlying system is coordinated and can communicate with each other, we reduce confusion, we reduce delays in execution as different systems are processed by the CWS folks. And I think most importantly, we reduce the likelihood that multiple evacuations will be executed independently, relying on the same surface street network, and that multiple agencies are putting people onto a roadway without an awareness of who else is doing that and what the implications are as far as traffic flow. This grant is designed to produce a countywide system that will bring the best practices that we currently have in place in the district. It'll bring it to the rest of the county. MOFD was asked by the County Chiefs Association to act as the lead for this grant because of our expertise in developing these evacuation polygons and evacuation decision support tools that we've put into place over the last several years. Since we have that expertise, it was deemed by the group that we would be best positioned to execute this grant. The work will obviously, if the board adopts this tonight, we'll go through an RFP process. And through the RFP, in alignment both with our purchasing and contracting policies, as well as UASI's policies, and we've been involved in significant amount of pre-discussions with UASI to ensure anything we are doing is done in accordance with their policies, so there will be no issues with reimbursement. After a vendor is selected, we would move forward with overseeing the execution of the development of a system by the vendor that would take the best practices that we currently have in place here and would be interoperable with surrounding counties that have similar systems. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from either the public or the board on this topic.
What type of a contract are we talking about? Is it a software issue?
Yes, sir. It's a development of software.
So is this going to impact, other than Dennis Rains or whoever's going to be in charge of it, is it really going to take a lot of our staff time, or is it pretty much going to be we're going to sign a contract and let somebody else do a majority of the work?
Yes, sir. There will certainly be some staff time associated with executing the RFP and the contracting process. So the mechanics of letting the contract will require some staff time. That said, the development process, no, we will give our specifications to the contractor or the vendor, and the vendor will produce the software to those specifications. we'll produce the outcomes, because there are a number of vendors that have existing software that can do this. So they will run the zone production and the evacuation decision support pool production through their systems and produce the outputs that we need.
So who will administer on an ongoing basis, manage the project? I mean, after it's done, implemented?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That would after they're in place, then it would revert either to OES or to the jurisdiction that has the authority over that area. So just like we manage our zones now, either OES would do it on a countywide basis, or each jurisdiction would manage their own zones. Once you have the base, there's a significant amount of inputs to make those more relevant. That would all be the responsibility of each specific jurisdiction.
Is there hardware associated with it?
No, sir. No hardware.
So you said we have to put more things into it after it gets done to make it applicable to us?
Ours is already done, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to open this then to public comment.
Well, Chief, this is Director Donner. How is this different than Zone Haven?
It potentially is not. Obviously, the output is the same. The RFP process would determine which vendor was selected.
Okay.
So we have not received any written public comment, and we do not have any hands raised.
Okay, so I'll close this to public comment. Do we have any board questions? Additional board questions?
I don't have any question, but I just, this is a great opportunity, and to increase our potential here for evacuation support system is great.
I would agree, and it's nice to be the one that's in charge of things, because then you get to have some influence on how it all works.
Yeah.
So good job, Chief. It's an informational packet. Oh, I guess actually we have to take a vote on this. So do I hear anybody that wants to move to adopt this? Authorize this?
I'll make a motion to authorize acceptance of the UASI grant to develop the comprehensive evacuation support system and authorize capital project fund revenue expenditure budget adjustment increase amount of $300,000.
I'll second that.
Yep.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Bates?
Aye.
Director Donner?
Aye.
Director Jex?
Aye.
Director Jorgens?
Aye.
You missed me.
And Director Danziger?
Aye.
Okay.
We do have a hand that just raised after we close public comment.
Okay, we can hear that.
So I've unmuted you to talk. McCullough?
Yeah, I was just wondering what our match is on this grant.
No match.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that passes item 9.4, the acceptance, authorizing acceptance of the Urban Area Security Initiative grant to develop a comprehensive evacuation support system and authorize capital projects fund revenue and expenditure budget adjustment increases in the amount of $300,000 passes unanimously.
And Fire Marshal Isaacs has raised his hand.
My apologies, Marcia.
No problem.
Your apologies mean you didn't want to raise your hand, or?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, great. So then the next item on the agenda, I think, is committee reports. Do we have any committee reports?
I don't think so.
Okay, not hearing any committee reports. We will move through those. And do we have any public comment on the fact that we don't have any committee reports?
We do not have any hands raised or written public comment.
That's good. Okay, so I'm going to close the public comment on that. Announcements.
I would just say that in December, the end of December, President Jorgens and myself attended the City, Town, and MOFD subcommittee meeting. There'll be some changes on that. People coming and going. So I think I don't think we have a next meeting scheduled right now. I'm not even sure it's going to be in January, but I assume in February. And we'll probably have some changes to that committee, but it's going to continue in 2021 as far as I know.
And I think it's been a good source of updates to the various town councils and city councils, and sharing of information with the community and between the communities. Yeah,
and last meeting, Assembly Member Bauer Kahan and a representative from State Senator Steve Glazer addressed the subcommittee.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, any questions or informational comments from the board members and staff? Okay, fire chief updates.
Good evening, directors. Unfortunately, Christine Russell had a family emergency, had to drop off. So I will be presenting the HR update, but we'll start with the fire marshal for an update on prevention division.
Good evening, directors. Been working on the CWPP, preparing for the upcoming meetings for that. Also been reaching out to the CAL FIRE resource management staff and working on the number of dead trees we see in the area and getting informational items out to our citizens so they're aware of the dead trees and the need to remove them. And also have some good news and bad news. We are losing one of our fuel mitigation specialists, Tiffany Walls. Good news for her, she's going to San Francisco City Fire Department as a firefighter, pursuing her dream and goals to become have a career in the fire service. Tiffany has been a key member of our team and a huge part of our success in the chipping program and the fuels mitigation program. We're absolutely going to miss her, but wish her the best of luck and can't wait to see what great things she does over there in San Francisco.
Fire Marshal, when's her last day?
Friday, sir.
Okay. Yeah, please give her best regards. Stay safe from the board, I would say. I had the opportunity to spend a day with her and get to know her even after that a little bit. And she will be missed, and I'm sure she'll be a great firefighter.
Yes, sir. I will make sure I pass that along. And then to fill her spot, I'll be working with Christine in HR to initiate the hiring process and going through all that.
Okay.
If I could just briefly, as both Fire Marshal said and Director Danziger, we were very fortunate to have her. We appreciate all of the things she did. She was phenomenal in any number of areas and really speaks to the high quality folks we've been able to get in the fuel mitigation specialist position. And no surprise, she's moved on to better things. And I would not be surprised to see her in a leadership position in the San Francisco Fire Department in the not too distant future. We're very excited for her. Big day to have gotten that call, which came in yesterday around noon. So it moved pretty fast, and it's something she's been working on for quite a while. So it was a really exciting moment for her and for the rest of us to be able to share in that.
Great. Okay.
Jeff, anything else from prevention?
No, sir. That concludes my report.
Okay. So as Jeff referenced, due to Tiffany's departure, we'll be moving forward with HR we have one remaining candidate on the list with whom we have scheduled an interview on Friday to move forward with hiring and then onboarding / training new fuel mitigation specialist as we move into what will soon be our very busy time of the year as we see demand for that service go up. And then as we shift into inspections and citations in the summer, making sure that the new member is spun up in time. So we'll continue to move forward there and then start thinking about forming a new list just so we anticipate that we will continue to see movement amongst our fuel mitigation specialists as they pursue full-time, long-term positions of increased responsibility with other agencies. No other HR updates other than we're continuing to move forward with scheduling of annual physicals. So that's going forward, working with the providers amidst the COVID environment to ensure those are available. And then we continue to see members participating in the COVID vaccination process. And we should, the second shots begin later this week and into next week as we start to move forward with folks having had their second shots. In accordance with CDC guidance, however, having the shots does not change in any way our disease prevention protocols and enhanced hygiene and all the other steps we've been taking successfully since COVID began. So there won't be any measurable change. That we also are supporting the county-wide effort to increase vaccination. County Health is in the lead in that regard, but we've got folks supporting vaccination from a planning and staffing within the county. We also have 5 members deployed to Watsonville as part of the hospital support, where we've seen on a statewide basis, the California Fire Service has been pulled in, utilizing the training experience that our folks have in the provision of emergency care to augment the hospital staffs, where they've seen the lack of availability of travel nurses due to demand and the increase in hospital populations has severely tested the system. And firefighter paramedics and firefighter EMTs have been deployed throughout the state to support that. And we have 5 members out currently supporting that through the OES CFAA system, just like we do for wildfires. It was simplified by the fact that it used the exact same system. The reports so far have been very good, that they've been meaningfully engaged and are supporting the efforts of those hospitals to handle the surge that thankfully appears to be tapering off. The other item in my lane, we will start the first of the CWPP community meetings tomorrow. Encourage anyone who's interested in attending. The information's on our website under our calendar. And we look forward to explaining what we're trying to do and facilitating community input in order to make sure that this document is meaningful and is reflective of the community's concerns and understanding of fire, and is something that we can use to guide our efforts as a community for the next 3 years before it's updated. Coming back from the holidays, we were able to maintain our service levels, obviously, throughout the holidays, despite all the challenges specific with the increase in the vaccine or increases in COVID activity. Jumping a little bit ahead to communication received, but we received a number of very nice cards and at least 1 box of chocolates, which were appreciated from the community. So we really appreciate that feedback and validation that, from my perspective, that the members continue to uphold the high standards of the district that the community has come to expect. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Board members have any questions? So I have a couple. So on the COVID-19, I know that there are some organizations for seniors, for example, in Orinda, that have worked with the county, and they ended up setting up in coordination with the county, ended up setting up vaccination centers in, I think, Stanley Middle School, someplace over in Lafayette. And I'm wondering if we have any interest in doing things like that. I understand the county is actually looking for people to try to help with these things.
Yes, sir. So we've been, as I mentioned before, we're working in coordination with the county. To date, the county has asked the fire service to support vaccinations at 2 sites, one in San Ramon, one in Contra Costa County. We're supporting those. That's an expansion of the sites that were used for hospital and hospital worker and first responder vaccinations. When the county is looking for more sites, we'll certainly explore that. The challenge for us, however, is we only have 1 site that really has any space, and that's 41. And even that, if you look behind 41, it's really crowded out back, and the passing through, I'm not sure our sites are ideal for that. And then with the members deployed, there are challenges as well with staffing, because it does require significant input and staffing, and I'm not sure that we have the ability to stand one up on our own.
Well, the place in San Ramon that I went to yesterday uses schools because they're vacant right now and have lots of big parking lots. Speaking of which, I think you put a link to the one at the San Ramon Center on our website now. I have, I don't know, 20 or 25 friends that have used it so far. When I was there yesterday, we were the first car that pulled in. There were 10 stations that were manned by the fire personnel with, the paramedics, and 3 of them had cars at them. So, there was lots of capacity. They said they were, quote, full, but I think they're scheduling, and who knows why. I assume the county's telling them how to schedule it. But they were scheduling like 5 minutes between each appointment. And so there was lots of excess capacity. I don't know whether they had any more shots, but they certainly had lots of people there to be able to give the shots. So, and I've had a number of, the slots keep coming open. So even though they might turn you down, 5 minutes later, they might have more spots. I mean, lots more spots. I don't know how it keeps changing, but it's something that, there are a lot of people in the community that are anxious to have the information. So if we have a way to help communicate that link, I think it's a very different link than the county has, because at the same time I applied to the county and I heard back from them now 2 days later, and they said, thanks for sharing, we'll get back to you. And I've already had my shot. So, I would encourage, there seem to be a lot of, all over the country, because I got friends all over the country doing this, there appear to be a lot of doors into the same database, which is kind of strange. But they are not, I don't think, very coordinated. So, and it is also not only for people over 65, because when they have extra spots and they aren't giving out the vaccine, they open the door to more people.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. On our website under announcements, public service announcement vaccine update can be found on our homepage. There is a link. There are 2 links there. One is to request an appointment, and the other is for information about the COVID-19 vaccination in Contra Costa County. I would certainly encourage any community members who are interested in getting the shot to visit that, schedule an appointment. And exactly to your point, sir, this is evolving. It's dynamic. It's being rolled out fast. And first you're not to succeed, I would encourage folks to check back shortly thereafter as spots are regularly coming open. And our folks who have been out to be vaccinated have had the same experience, where the capacity exceeded the number of people who are coming through. And so there's certainly, there are opportunities to get vaccinated. We encourage folks to take advantage of those.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any public comment on any of this? Okay, I'll close the public comment on that. Do we have any, let's see, it says regular agenda items 11.1 to 11.5.
Yeah, so we skipped over communications.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, and future agenda items.
Yes, so under communications received, there was the legal information that was included on the special meeting packet or announcement, as well as a number of commendatory items associated with the holidays, generally thanking the district as in the abstract. And then lastly was communication regarding proposed development at Wilder. That is a planning element, which is the city of Orinda purview, not MOFD's.
Oh, and I will tell you, not only did I compliment the folks that were the firefighters that were at the San Ramon site, but I know a lot of people that were very excited. They were wonderfully professional and efficient and gave pain-free shots and were nice. And so great kudos to those guys. Okay, so do we have any comments on any of that or any future agenda items anyone wants to put on? We have the one thing that got moved this time, but other than that. Okay, hearing none of that, I would be open to a recommendation that we we adjourn the meeting.
I'll motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote?
Director Bates?
Aye.
Director Danziger?
Aye.
Director Donner?
Yes.
Director Jex?
Yes.
President Jorgens?
Yes. Okay, thank you all. We had a great meeting and we'll see you in about a month.
Aye.
Except for the special meeting.